was a level of minimum 300 right now, but like the whole time speaking candidate like is mean that in many teams that none of like up until the stick game but get to take one that. The point definitely that once like the thirds could get would be revealed like after the like definitely like after the like the thirds could give them the potentially like far beyond even like the wild dreams of like each of its looking candidates out there, except for like Sanjay of the new editor, for like the danger and threat and intimidation level of like the Australian that scenario that I'm going to like, especially because like I'm going like a kind of like a similar situation as to like that of like how like the third game in 2020 was like the type of work to get and like compared to like the first and second Squid Game in 2020. The fact that like the first Squid Game had uh, uh, like the intimidation and like difficulty level of like the first Squid Game actually had that sharp increase compared to definitely for like a similar situation in like the third Squid Game in like 2024 as well. It's like the scenario that I'm looking at. And I'm definitely switching into my brain because that like the first Squid Game in 2024 would definitely be not be a team-based game, but like to be like an individual kind of like that game. That's definitely another favorite. And that way, like everyone on the different like almost everyone like basically entering into like the third game before the revelation of like the third game. Like I'm from everyone entering into like the third game, being hopeful that like as a team they would be able to like succeed and pull through again. In like the third game as well, but like I'm three months like the third game is reveal like not only like the strange range of and toughness and intimidation factor as well as like the fact that like the third game the jump definitely everything would be like an individual based game like I'm that itself like only causing a lot of panic the moment like the game is revealed as that same scenario that is only for another favorite and then definitely protect still thinking about the impression that like among like the student candidates that will be getting eliminated in like the students. Definitely, I would find that a great, unlike like in the case of like the first as well as like the second student like 2024, where like no that great number of like student candidates got eliminated. So but in the case of the first student member to connect the situation, though, but like the first student would be over like the situation will be totally different, and I was like way more greater number of like student candidates from the different like in like just like first game alone like everything like great number of like the majority of the Indian candidates on the different will be getting eliminated just in like the first game itself is like that. It's like the scenario that I'm talking about, and that would definitely still taking about mention that, and that would be definitely according to in-house plan to like definitely to that way ensure that basically since like after that the fourth game would be once again expecting like how in like 2020 it was like available in 2024 as well like the years definitely thing might be like showing up to like just the game building to watch just like the fifth as well of things so like I'm going to be that much of like an extreme priority for like info exactly like how it works it might have been like really like to like weird out like the weak players by the time like the singing candidates make it to like the good game to like have all the weak and weak players like get cleared out and eliminated so that like it like the games would be that much more interesting to like the VIPs and would like impress like the VIPs. So like this intent I'm delivering exactly like a rerecate of like the game in like 2020 kind of like a scenario where I'm going to bring back the difficulty as well as like the range and threat level and intimidation level of the third game in 2020 will be like way higher than when compared to like the second game like in the scenario that I'm bringing. And like not only I'm going to bring like and I'm going to bring like the individual space uh, factor of like the first two game which I'm going to bring to be like the case I'm going to bring resulting in like I'm going to bring like I'm still thinking about the that like among the great number of game candidates which I'm going to bring would be getting eliminated in like the first game I don't like I'm going to bring there definitely I'm going to bring like that mother Squid Game candidates so some Squid Game candidates have right now voted to like continue playing like Squid Game like I'm going to bring that mother Indian candidate that uh, ending up getting eliminated in like the first Indian like the scenario that I was thinking and still thinking on to and like along with her members different like also like chosen like friends that girl as well. Who's like totally scared and it's really wants to like leave the studio and like I'm bring her as well getting eliminated in the first studio. And I'm bring like then the coin guy like the formatting like basically Janti as well. Definitely the pregnant Janti as well. Definitely protect will be most likely getting eliminated in like the search would be like the winter scenario that I'm just bringing something onto an information. So like I'm bringing that who like the search to give elimination for elimination. I'm just bringing like definitely specifically the chapter chat will be going through that extreme of regret of that right now voting to like continue playing the game and also would be definitely to build up I'm going to bring that the Sanskrit game candidate as well as that Chojun as well as like I think that Benji going guy if he hasn't already voted like Ambassador definitely my preparation for like the voting of like Benji going guy right now Ambassador would be to totally continue playing the game. It's definitely my impression because like even though he's like concerned he would be like totally concerned for like countries that safety like still like I'm wrong by countries like exceptional performance in like the second few years. Like I'm also bringing like Benji going guy might be feeling pretty confident in like the in like the working like Janti being a like survive and like I'm also bringing like Benji going guy into also totally assuming that basically the third civilian as well doing like a team game and like Benji going guy will be totally planning already that basically by right now voting to like continue with like the speaking like which I'm going to bring like 20 coin guys will be like voting and I'm going to bring like 20 coin guys like plans will be to like before like the game begins to like basically make it up to Junkie and to with like and to like ensure that basically Junkie ends up he gets Junkie to be part of his team so that like he can always keep protecting Junkie throughout like the upcoming games and basically so that like people like safely survive with like Junkie and like leave like just to give with all that money after like eventually miss like continuity along the lines like when we going die will be right now thinking but like I'm doing and that way I'm also thinking like actually they were going like when we going die only will be like what in like continue playing like school games still like the best school game right now the scenario that I'm doing but like I'm doing in like the best school game still in the mention that like of like champions well getting eliminated so like that creating that deep regret within like the Indigo and guy as well. It's like an event scenario that I'm looking for. This will be all like this beat regression will be all collectively eventually bringing like creating that app loop. It's like towards like the Squid game itself within like within Jordan that within the Indigo and guy as well as maybe within like the Sun game ended it and which will be eventually bringing them drawing them towards like Sanjo being part of like Sanjo goal eventually to like basically bring down like the Syrian like the scenario that I'm looking and sitting on the frame. Also like the remote possibility that I'm looking right now for like maybe like I'm looking like the scenario where like I'm looking like that in like the 2020 experience like that I'm looking maybe like the VIPs like after witnessing like the fifth as well as like the sixth game in 2020 like they might maybe like them getting so extremely impressed to like the point that basically right now in let's say 2024 to get and I'm looking maybe of like the possibility that maybe after like the 2020 games like I'm due to like Santiago spending maybe like all of his money to like basically to capture and bring down like the people behind the studio. I'm thinking bring maybe like just to give maybe not getting conducted after lecture it is not being possible for like it was like conducting school games after lecture within this also like about the variable. So like maybe I'm also putting like also like a remote possibility of like after 2020 school games like I'm doing right now like seven like games that will be taking place will be like set in the 21st right now. It's also like a remote possibility that I'm so like I'm doing that I'm doing maybe of like remote possibility that basically the VIPs who showed up and watched like the 2020 Squid Games like as well as 60 games might have been so really impressed with like the Squid Games of like that country that basically even more than the Squid Games of other country that basically I'm looking for like in this year like the 2024 Squid Games as for like the VIPs maybe possibly making the demand and that basically they want to not only just see like the fifth as well as like the sixth game like the form, but like them also wanting to like see all the way from like the fourth game like they them wanting the VIPs demanding that them wanting to like see like the fourth fifth as well as the game. It's also like a possibility that I'm looking and that way like I'm looking like maybe agreeing to that demand. And I would think the VIPs definitely would be like definitely might have only even made the offer of like paying even way greater in exchange for them like for like letterman points like the fourth as well as like the fifth as well as to gain like the they doing before like the 2024 students. It's also like a remote possibility that I'm considering and to which like I'm considering information of legal create and so like I'm considering maybe like of like a remote possible scenario where like I'm considering that the fundamental prediction like the third could be being like so sharply like extremely dangerous difficult as well as like extremely scary and intimidating when compared to like the first as well as second game in like 2024 and that like the traumatizing like the student candidate will be going through like the third game and I'm also like although like the majority of like the student candidates like ending up getting eliminated just in like the third game alone was like due to its like extreme difficulty and everything was like although like individual possible scenario where like those are like after that like I'm doing like maybe after like the among like the few survived student candidate survivors who will be like completing like the third studium I'm doing like at that point like so completing the third studium then being first with this year and wrong days that like I'm doing like they would be at that point afraid to like basically leave like quickly vote and leave the studiums but like I'm doing like at that point like I'm doing while they will be like at that point I was like after the third game like then they shocked that like basically they are seeing no voting problem. So like at that point I was bring one of like senior candidates that is only demanding that they want to like vote and leave like the Tuesday. And that at that point I was bring that maybe that the replacement from man in right now in place of like info with like info right now being like instead of like the good against candidate like I'm going maybe like being like a replacement from man and that replacement from man like at that point showing up. That's like one more thing that I'm doing or like I'm doing like it will be like senior most like Squid Game worked up in that religion combat will be going up at that point or like I'm doing it would be like an officer that would be like officer Squid Game worked up that will be going up at that point and then totally at that point we're getting to like all the terrified and scared Squid Game candidates that basically the option to that both to that basically leave like the student with that the prize money being shared between them that basically that option is only available after like the first as well as like the second skill game but like from after like the third skill game from like the third skill game or like there is no option to like basically leave from like the Squid Game that basically that is like the role along the lines like I'm doing 1980 that one of the Squid Game of announcing to like all the extremely scare and shock and terrified Squid Game candidates at that point is like also like an individual possible scenario that and this is all the topic. Definitely because of like according to my question I'm pushing like maybe since like since like the VIPs would be like would have by then like already shown up by the time like the CGM maybe or like after the next scenario in which like the VIPs would have by then already would have shown up to like basically what to watch like the post game. So like at that point like basically keeping that option to like leave from the CGM would be totally causing like that has been disappointment to like the VIPs who would have like totally paid all that money to like watch like and would have shown up like with that like high expectation to like watch that ultimate games in like 2024. So like I'm looking like due to this like I'm looking like maybe I'm looking like change the scenario is like info setting up such a trap and basically maybe that's simply changing up the role so that like basically after like the game while all the game candidates would be terrified and would be desperately wanting to like what and quickly leave and at that point like almost like the entire difference game candidates would be or like the majority of game candidates would be so scared man like that like they would all want to like really leave the game but like there being no voting option to leave from the game that way like the student candidate getting trapped and getting forced that way getting into like a post kind of like situation to like play like support to game like anyways in possible scenario that I was worrying. And maybe like that would be like the point where like Sangyon deciding to like basically rebel against like the in a strategical manner to like basically to form like the ultimate team and unity between like the Syrian candidates and basically to create like an army with the remaining Syrian candidates to like with that absolute strategy to like revolt against like the Syrians and like the Syrians to bring down like the workers and like the Syrians and to capture like the from and like all that like all that attempt from like Sangyon side like beginning from that point on after like the third game would be over and like all of like the remaining civilian candidates will be losing all that hope and will be totally scared. Like maybe at that point, like Sangyon like playing the role of like being that their courageous leader who will be like at that point strategizing like to them to rebel and revolt against like the civilians and to bring down like the civilians and by attacking and bring down like the civilian when Sangyon like planning like the civilian candidates in such a manner. It's also like inventing possible remote kind of like a possible scenario that I'm also talking at that point and my very interesting. And then you know my version of that major effect about the that like has that resilient group of like Sanction like against like the civilians and like the civilian methods would the attack and the fight against the civilians would be starting to like peacefully face and face like that up with setback that maybe at that point basically coincidentally when like the backup arriving through like Jung-ho and his like teams like infiltration into like the civilian building because like by then like precisely by sheer lack of that Sangha and like the Indian civilian candidates like everything like Jung-ho finally and his team that finally being able to like find that civilian island and finally being able to like make it dance, make it do and finally making their infiltration and that whole backup arriving that way like Jung-ho and they did then collectively like attacking against like the civilian of the island and that way like the VIPs like ethically waiting and escaping and it's like clinical scenario that I'm looking for. And maybe like info as well. Maybe during that whole like chaos, like maybe info as well, maybe like managing to like stealthy escape is also like maybe like a positive that I'm looking for the right enough for them. Okay, so like but minimum right now with like the sun's to be ended right now telling like the Lord to be ended about the screw depth and like the range of it and like the minimum right now is for like the mother being candidate right now getting angry at like the sun's game candidate and able to like telling him that basically that she is like she's like if like if we had already if we had like basically sourced of like the hope then like even like in like earlier itself like she would have totally willfully totally like straight away like donated some I liver as well as like kidney so that like he could like totally be so that like subcon like he could like totally be debt free and like would be able to like start over. Is definitely never remember. So like I'm doing that that way like the most to get candidate like I'm doing right now telling the sons to get candidate then angry man of shouting to him that like he should have still or like the button to like leave like to game because like she could have done that and she could have saved him but right now since like he has uh like we have like basically press like the button to like stay like basically like I'm doing like some other studio candidate like I'm playing like to some that basically like what if like in like the next game like she can't imagine like her sons getting like eliminated in like the next game so like if that son gets eliminated in like the first game, then like I'm going to like start selling the son that like then that will be like a total waste of like all the hardships and suffering that like not only her but like them both had gone through in like the Squid Games would be along the lines of the different like some of the student candidate like shouting at like the some student candidate and maybe I'm looking like the mother calling like the some a goal for like making that absolute plan of which she believes especially of like that decision to like continue playing the game like in the scenario that I'm going to bring out today. It was in the Platinum 300% right now as playing that it's young based like betrayal of the team and developing to like continue playing the game like I'm going to bring like definitely still I'm going to bring like in like the third good game. I'm definitely bringing young based case like I'm definitely bringing like young based will be provided like the children, regardless of think about the method I'm definitely trying the children to be like not very from that extremely difficult and as well as like an individual based game as well as what I'm going to bring. Still about for like jumping, pulling through and still totally managing to like fairly survive and like the search to get and like that way young way like survive like the games like the scenario that I'm looking for and my but since like according to the Freeman since the role brain like the brain and to shortly to getting eliminated in like the third games like to bring that totally creating like an extreme regret and guilt feeling within like Janbe. Even though I'm to bring Janbe to like survive with the third game, that you will be filled with that absolute deep guilt and regret and emphasizing that like Jung is just like totally installing Jung-bae like the scenario parameters because like then they right now voting to like continue play like this game Jung-bae is the thing that taking it Jung-bae at to die like basically even though Jung-bae is like voting regardless with made the different like still that guilt would be still like would be like there within like Jung-bae is like the mental scenario that I make it over but I cannot although my introduction of like what like the to game would be but like it could be like a strength focus like strength based like individual game with like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm looking that doing that creation factor that would be like even allowing like Jumbe with like Jumbe like marriages like Jumbe is like an ex marine like due to like all that training and that we are going through that we are like Jumbe that allowing Jumbe to like succeed in that strength focus like strength based like search to games like they will do scenario that I'm preferring. So like I'm looking like and that factor itself like the fact that like I'm looking according to my research I'm looking at search to game will be like strength focus like solution based games being that exact factor that will be resulting in like basically that mother student candidate as well as like the pregnant journey as well as like that journey friends student candidate of like children that basically them three definitely eventually getting in it like eventual scenario that I'm also going to topic and member version. And also I'm still here in the member into the unproduction of like that little girl who's unwell like basically not part of the candidate like I'm still thinking about the version as for like him as well totally getting eliminated in like the first video. Well, like since I'm going to my finish and the different like the first video to be like a strength focus video like I'm going to definitely like that with results father as well. She will be having like the might be having like some sort of like a serious health issue which would be like which would be like resulting which would be like the contingent of that would be like really that like the little girl part within the like we won't be able to like use strength that strength would be like previous like previous levels of strength would be like probably advised against by like the uh, advised against like maybe by the doctor to just like health condition that like we might be keeping a secret from everyone. It's also like the possibility that about the thing. So like there maybe that of like the possibility that like maybe that him that way that as like he'll be using strength like I'm moving like in like the schooling like about like so he's struggling to use that strength to like succeed in like the game. So like I'm doing that resulting in like him getting eliminated in like the game. And like definitely I'm looking like at that point like definitely it will be like I'm presenting that not me or but like another game of the that will be eliminating that part of stupid candidate and then bring that at that point and I'm going to like him being kept alive with like the scenario that I'm going and that's definitely Neon at that point you'll be shockingly notice it straight away noticing that and then we have that point is that Neon totally ensuring to land properly eliminate like that problem student candidate at that point it's like the scenario that I'm giving. That way I'm just gonna make it completely like you're definitely taking the life of like that problem student candidate and straight away like I'm just gonna like so much exact to game workers who had basically recently attacked me or like I'm looking at them so we straight away capturing Neol and taking away Neol into like the indoor area but out of like the student gameplay area and into like the interior of the student game building and they are like I'm looking like Neol totally they totally prepared for like such a scenario. So like literally or totally attacking them and like basically with one really hiding some sort of like weapons. So like and doing that like you were totally attacking them and like escaping straight away running into like the stroke of like shooting candidates and like from like the stroke like and everything like from like the ceiling of like the stroke from this like in back in 2020 like saviors have basically entered into like the air ventilation scientists like and pathway in like the ceiling like it's so exactly like in your would be like escaping from like the civilian muscles and would be surviving in such a manner. Was definitely not the same, but so that the climatic vibrations that like in your after like the recent attack by those two civilian muscles and the you are totally being prepared, being well prepared for like such a possible scenario and like that way might have already found out and prepared like the escape route as well, and that would be just like exact ceiling area in like the restroom of the recipient candidate through like the air ventilation network pathway in the maze like pathway integrated system in that it would be like an extremely complex maze that would not in get to ceiling. But like through there like I'm looking with me straight away like escaping. It's like the scenario that under escaping and hiding in like that network complex maze like network is like the scenario that I'm switching on the one premise. Also, the minimum Korean version right now is for like white chosen that continue the border to like continue playing the Squid games. Like I'm just saying that that might not just be due to like for like children to like have to be able to like make the money, have the money to be able to like fully complete surgeries. Might not be the case definitely with the Korean like my Korean version the actuality of like the reason would be I'm referring that would be due to like chosen in her life might have had to like suffer a lot definitely my book represents from like all sorts of people and even random strangers due to like children to like solely due to like children's like surgery. It's definitely my book and even from like children's like parents as well as like from there are children goes like available like even from total strangers like available children might have had to like suffer a lot in her life ever since like children might have performed very first surgery, might have undergone some very first surgeries that they might have brain pressure. So like I'm also like children like the desperate need for like children to like continue playing like with them might be for like so that like children would be having enough. So this ultimate goal would be to like basically to have enough money so that like children could like children might have like seen like others like children who might have been also even suffering that even way more than children might have suffered in her life, especially when children might know such individuals, especially when the parents. So definitely the desperate need for like children to like make for that money would be bring would be more likely to like support like the community. It's definitely my personal impression to like support and like to totally support like the so that children will be able to like totally be able to like properly support like the community. So that because like my personal impression is that maybe children what children will be strongly believing and strongly believing will be that like others out there in children might know who will be like suffering as much or even worse of that children like basically children might desperately want this money so that like others as well as like others like children like even in like poor like the future won't be having to like suffer like won't be having to like go through the very same exact suffering that children might have gone through to like to even give a better future to like individuals like children will be like who will be like going through like the same both of like situations that of like children will be that with such a genuine great noble props would be like the reason for like total even risking her life to like basically and playing like the recipients that he might be real. Okay, so like the name of the ambition right now as for like that friend of children, that girl right now saying children is like beautiful and showing straight away like getting emotional and tearing up. Like I'm referring to be definitely I was remembering that like it will be definitely because like after children had a very first surgery Campbell Renegade since that it might have been like the very first time in her life that like a Jojo might someone might have said that Jojo is beautiful might have only happened right now through that friend of that Jojo, that girl right now. It's definitely not a friend. After that Jojo surgery, this might be like the very first time that someone might have told that that Jojo is like beautiful. It's definitely one of the time. This might be, and children might have been longing to like to hear such a compliment, and like, this might be the reason for like children right now getting so extremely emotional and tearing up. It's definitely my personal impression right now. And it's like the minimum impression right now with like the MG going guy right now projecting data like pop up to like hangouts, but it's been like I'm definitely still thinking about the reason that like in the definitely preparing for like a junkie to like definitely getting a junkie and that way like a sport uh ending up becoming vacant in like Sanjay team and episode of Netflix that's what literally getting filled through like Benji point. Like even though he would be like at that point with like the next of Junkie and the different like Benji point guy going through such extreme like emotional kind of like situation. emotional kind of like a situation, and the delivering like when people would say that trying and reduce and put such an emotional state. And right at that point, I'm definitely protecting that once again, it's just like Thanos and his team would be like okay at that point mocking like the MG Coin guy and making fun of like the MG Coin guy, like the next individualistic man of that ring would be like the last straw, and like would be triggering like the MG Coin guy to like the free man, the MG Coin guy at that point straight away rushing towards like Thanos and his team, especially towards like Thanos and attacking Thanos with like all of his like strength with like the scenario that I was playing. So like other this fight happening once like the first game would be over and like the Squid candidate would be all back to like the Squid candidate of like the scenario that I was playing. And I was playing like at that point like Thanos probably struggling and straight away like Thanos like team members like that other guy who always sticks around with like Thanos all the time, like I mean, like him, like them both like teaming up and attacking like that MG Coin guy and something that like the scenario that I'm looking at. And at that point, I'm definitely for like Teho as well as like Jung-bae as well as like maybe like as well like all of them showing up and basically fighting back against like the team of like MG Coin guy as well as like uh, against like the team of like Thanos and like the friend of like the scenario that I'm looking. That way, like I'm looking like it would be like Sanjon's team that would be like saving like the extremely badly injured and broken guy at that point left the scenario that I'm looking, and that then like I'm looking like a whole interaction happening between like the interaction happening between like the Indigo guy and like all of them, and at that point like I'm looking definitely maybe like shockingly like I'm looking like Jung-bae finding out that basically Jung-hee was like the girlfriend. I think that either girlfriend was likely flirting with Jung-hee might be like the girlfriend of like Sandy Ganda is the female and like the at that point like I'm looking Jung-bae shockingly realizing this and like definitely shockingly realizing the reason for the whole fight and everything happening at that point and everything. Jung-bae would be deeply feeling that regret and then like Jung-bae like the friendly bonding like when he's going guy to be part of like their team and like they would be desperate like due to that guilt like them would be desperate to like help like the MD going guy out and all that. So, that will like through that what interaction that would be having happening which I'm bring happening after like the Sangyo's team would be like saving like the MD going guy from like the from Thanos and his friend like I'm looking at definitely that whole interaction eventually ending up looking like the MD coin guy ending up replacing Janti as like that new member of like Quantum Speak. It's like when the scenario that I'm doing, and I'm looking from that point on like the MD coin guy being that part of like Quantum Speak from that point. I was like changing the scenario which is fine right now in my okay, so that definitely my birthday ambition right now as for like children right now wanting to like take for us from right now. Definitely I'm also bringing like children definitely right now wouldn't be wanting to like actually use that thing like I'm like children definitely should be that genuine concern and empathy from like children's side because like I'm definitely from children's point of view like children would only see like that mother citizen candidate as well as like junkie as like easy target for like the remaining student candidates. So like another friend like chosen might be definitely be able to like see like the range of especially when like children was like a soldier definitely children might have seen like all the extreme kind of like situations in like how yeah it's definitely one of the same business. So like how in how people might act and everything it's definitely one of the same business. So like definitely I'm looking for it to be definitely due to like the genuine concern and empathy from certain side that like a business children definitely to ensure like safety and protection of like the mother of the candidate as well as like certainly will be like the sole reason for like children right now uh want saying that like she wants to use like the so it's definitely my way of right. Okay, so like definitely not very understand right now as for like info right now sketchy or hearing like the conversation between like Sangyeon and Jangdae like I'm definitely right now info right now would be totally contemplating that would it only analyzing and assessing that hearing their conversation might have made like info totally doubt his entire life so far. It's definitely not the brain principle. Ever since like the first time info might have met in which might have been precisely when like info might have been working at it back when like info might have been married and like back when info was married and like when info was like working at this job like they are like I'm one of like info's client might have definitely been ill now and I'm like eventually once like info's wife wasn't like going through that situation that help right kind of like a situation like I'm like at that point definitely like I'm it might be that client specific client in himself that might have and this might have been all before like info might have not even knew that like Ilnam was like Info's father. It's definitely remember which is my personal impression that like Ilnam would definitely be Info's father. It's definitely remember so that back then like even before Info realizing that like Ilnam back then when Info was in fact just struggling kind of like a situation like Ilnam might have been that person in like Info's story that might that client at like Info's like work that might have offered Info some money which might have not which might have been how like according to like Info story like Info might have totally Info getting like basically uh caught and basically that way like ending up with like I think like might have got arrested and losing his job and basically that way like Info like basically like not being able to like save his wife basically like not being able to like pay for his like wife's surgery and that way like Info's wife ending up dying and basically like all this like collectively happening and but like after like and I'm thinking remember that like it might have been after like that client might have given that money to like Info that like Info might have been so extremely happy because like until that point and because like Info might have been of the mindset that basically as like a last resort to like save his wife like Info might have been of like the mindset that basically not to ensure that like the surgery if possible that Info is able to like pay for like surgery of this like wife like Info as if like last resort might have been totally planning on like basically giving up like one of his like kidneys to like still selling like one of the like kidneys so that um so that using that money Info would be able to like pay for like a surgery of his wife and that way Info would be able to like save his wife. Info might have been of such a mindset when like Ilna might have stepped in as like this client and that's like willing to like pay money to like Info for this like Info's like wife surgery and that like Ilna might have that might have been Ilna like willing to stick strategy to like eventually trap and have Info eventually ending up losing his job and losing his like wife and losing everything and so that like through uh, villanistic manner, like for like and stealthy manner for like Ilnam to like eventually drop Info who would be like losing everything towards like Obsidian, towards like entering into like Obsidian. That might have been what might have happened in like the 2015 in like the 2015 Obsidian where like Info had entered and became like the winner of the Indian Member Championship. Even in like Info becoming like the winner of like the 2015 Obsidian as well, like I'm maybe but there are two possibilities. Like one possibility is like maybe Ilnam might have totally like putting close into like the foot of like Info. That's like the more likely possibility that I'm looking and which might have also ask for like what the next chain would be and that might have even like Info that still the answer advantage which might have allowed Info to like be like the winner of like the 2015 game and other one like the frontman that then might have been like Ilnam's friend. So like I'm looking like once like Info became like the winner like I'm looking like Ilnam might have either like replace that frontman with like Info might have been what might have happened. So like that frontman might have back then might have after like Info might have became like the winner of the 2015 million that according to like Ilnam so that frontman might have sort of to like Info straight away and might have told Info brought Info towards like the secret room where like Ilnam stays in like the game building back then. It's definitely that way and it might be back then that like I'm looking that when Info might have seen Ilnam within that room, like within the school game building, like Info might have been totally end up in this shop and it might be back then that like Ilnam might have revealed to like Info that basically Ilnam was like Info's might have been what might have happened to the tradition. Yet like I'm looking like Info back then might have not had any sort of suspicion connection to like Ilnam that basically back when like Ilnam as like a client at like the place where Info was and basically offered that money to Info, which might have according to my book, remember might have been what like introduced further in like Info ending up being like the way being in like the situation, losing everything and ending up being part of like the student and everything. Might have been what might have been still Info even back then like when like within like this game building like after like Info became like the 2015 winner of the studio like one like in might have totally talk to like Info met and talk to like Info within like the game building at that point like Info might have not had like any subscription to Info might have been felt might have been innocent and might have not had like any subscription towards like the possibility of like the for kingdom possibly realistically having like a role to play in like in his life ending up being like the way it was remember. So like even at that point like Ilna might have played like the role like the fate put on like the fate acting and might have played the role of like a savior for like in his life and might have Ilna might have told him for to basically to like uh, because like definitely the reason for like enough doing all this will be presenting solely to like enough like extreme obsession with like the studio things that now was like getting more extremely old like I'm like enough might have wanted like the studio to like continue on even after like enough through his son might have been like and solely due to that reason alone like enough might have been in those stuff in like info it's also like about with that another so like that way like I'm like it might be only at that point that will might have decided to like make this move to get info eventually end up playing the experience and so through so that like info would and Linda might have planned to like totally brainwash info at that point which might have been what Linda might have done and like info himself like as like a info as like an orphan who might have been totally gotten adopted into like Junko's like mother's like family like basically like I'm looking like in the case of like Junko's like mother like she might have not been able to like confuse and so like she might have adopted info from this orphanage where like Ilna might have abandoned info might have been what might have happened in like Mr. Basim because you remember thing. So like I'm looking at it might have been after like soon after like Jungkook's mother might have adopted info that like I'm looking like Jungkook's mother while she might have never expected that she would ever be able to like until she might have had like given birth to like Jungkook might have been what might have happened especially when that way like I'm sort of like now and up it might have instantly shifted from info to like straight away to like Jungkook might have been what might have happened especially when so like I'm looking all the way to then like I'm looking like info might have been desperate to like basically to know the truth to like find out who it is that like involves like through parents up. So like I'm moving it that way like eventually after like the 2015 Squid Game in which like info had won like after that like when info might have when Ilna might have who like command then might have brought info towards like Ilna at that point when Ilna might have maybe like revealed to like info that Ilna was like info power like at that point like for info like who at that point had lost everything was like by the job and everything like I'm looking at that point like for info like basically it might have been like as if like it might have felt as if like he has absolutely someone in his life info who might have felt as if like he has absolutely no one in his life like at that point for info it might have felt that he has like actually someone in his life and through Kinnam might have been what might have happened like this about 15 years of the so and then like Ilna might have totally used that situation to like totally seriously manipulate info into like brainwashing info into like basically uh like come to the decision to like basically carry on like experience even after like till now so that way like till now might have brainwashed info might have been what might have happened certainly very different but like this entire time even to like the person like info might have like absolutely no idea that basically the of like the true villain side of like this like father in possibly having played like the role and might have totally had like trapped info back then in like the name of like basically paying money for like surgery of like info by was like a, that being like a conscious villainous decision by in to like track info into that have info ending up in like the situation in which like he personally is in like in info like kind of carrying on like the student and conduction of like students and everything might be along the lines like I'm supposing maybe it will be only right now as like info right now over here like the conversation between like Jung-bae and Sang-yeon where like Jung-bae right now tells Sang-yeon that basically it was due to like Sang-yeon like basically that like Jung-bae had gotten fired from like the whole from his job from like the factory which had like basically eventually spiraled into like Jung-bae right now in like the process ending up being part of like the students playing like the game as like a student candidate like ending up falling into the trap with the game like as Jung-bae right now says to Sang-yeon and the friend right now maybe like I'm like it might have totally click or like spark in that Info's mind. Maybe it might be only at this point that Info might be actually starting to like have the suspicion and doubt of like the possibility of like this entire time that in that home that Info might have been so extremely fond of and proud of as like his father right now. Even to the person like basically the possibility of that will not actually be such an extreme ultimate villain who might have like actually been like the person that might have consciously actually destroyed like involved life and got involved to like reach like the the situation of like involved where kitchen who is and basically I'm going to like this like overhearing of like the conversation between like Jung-bae and Sanjon and also like creating that ignition, that starting point of like a fire that will be burning, that fire of frustration that I'm also will be burning within info, which I'm also like eventually that fire spreading from within info, that fire of frustration spreading from within info into like initially info. I'm going to bring like certainly eventually what we maybe I'm going to bring right now for like info come to that realization that basically that like is like who's like father in now within that time was like the ultimate truth and only villain alone within that and he was like a villain like basically. So until that point, I'm looking like Info still really being in like denial as and like in his mind, like Info trying to like justify Ilham and like basically Info totally being in denial, trying to make the Freddy make him just believe that Ilham was like the scholar Ilham was like a great person, like great uh person and everything. But like I'm looking like eventually just Freddy I'm looking like Info like being eventually ending up being forced to like come to that realization that like the more like I'm like into would be spending time with like Sanjon and finding out more and more about like Sanjon's life uh I'm going to like info maybe like possibly come to such an absolute realization that basically that info himself as well is like a victim and has been like trapped and like the entire time like the in was like whom info thought was like totally a person was like an actual ultimate villain who had destroyed not only info but all of their life and had resulted in that it was like enough like actions alone that had like resulted in that even Sanjon and Sangu and all of them getting eventually trapped in like all of them like Sanjon as well as like Jung-bae as well as like all of them like losing their proper job that they had maintained at the factory and basically and all that like and then eventually ending up falling to like the trap of the villain. All this was like the actual villain's calculator and like tragical villainism of like in which like in consciously and villainously like basically eventually come to such uh this in concentrated like eventually info come to such a realization that scenario that I'm looking for the mention right now. And maybe at that point, if like such a realization happens to like at that point I'm looking for actually turning again like the same game as well. It's like the scenario that I'm looking at. If such a the scenario happens, then turning to like say like the scenario that I'm thinking. And if that happens, then I'm looking for like at that point without which creating I'm looking like info totally ending up buying this like the scenario that I'm getting. So like I'm gonna such a thing happens and if info decides to like turn against like this game, then I'm going to like submit creative and like among like info like officers that would be uh both the officers of like info and also maybe there will be only two officers for like one man. So like for info. So like I'm bringing those two officers like them having such the top of like position as like a good game worker in like this good game building right hand of like the front man to be the case. So like I'm getting the research then being given such a high position which is totally due to that. Then possibly those two officers possibly being like those people that like in his like currently might be like trusting for most and everything as like loyal people is definitely going to bring it. But like I'm maybe at the point usually like the conflict then would be finding out that info is like has turned against like citizens and those maybe at that point like the officers like basically teaming up and deciding to like eliminate info. So like I'm thinking that probably happening to not even through like the civilians but like even in that totally not even through like a civilian but like I'm thinking maybe through like the officers maybe ordering like civilian workers like or like through some such a manner like maybe like somehow like I'm looking to like in hope that they get eliminated and in hope that they really that is being able to take in the life of Info in a expecting manner or something and that way like Info ending up dying and basically that way like maybe those two officers or like one of the officer at that point they trying like the officer and basically maybe one of the officer like they is stealing import posted as like the frontman and usually like running like the game from that point on and basically taking over like stealing like all the assets of like Inho and everything. It's like in so like an Indian scenario that so like I'm looking that eventually ends up being like the case I'm looking that definitely happening towards like the end of like season 2 of like game. So like I'm looking maybe in like season 3 like I'm looking like it will be one of the current officers of like officers to game of that might be ending up replacing in of a selection new front man. So like the selection John will be having to like bring down to not like put an end to like the games to like the that like in that season 3 like and the San John's like fight to bring down like the front man will be against that new front man in like the games that will be taking place in like 2025 just like changes for the finale that I'm bringing right now on the career. Okay, so let's definitely like remember to right now with like the boardman front of like jump for right now no captain for like the captain of like the team two like the thing for like the Stadium Island like I'm maybe like since according to my book impression I'm supposed to bring maybe of also like the possibility that like the boardman front of like Junko with whom Junko for like the past 2 or 3 years like had basically searched desperately and frantically searched for like to find like the Stadium Island and has desperately failed like maybe of like the possibility of like that mod Boardman's friend of like example being secretly allied to like the to info it's like the possibility that I'm employing experience is like the possibility that I'm discovering and that being like the precise sole reason for like Janho not being able to like find like this game island even after like relentlessly searching for like 2 or 4 years I think that they and especially since like it was that very same boatman front of like Janko that had basically before them becoming friends had basically even found Janko after like Janko fell off that cliff and had saved Janko. But right, even that as well might have been according to like the secret orders of like info to that boatman since like that boardman would be like also working secretly working for like info and allied to like this million. So like I'm also currently such opportunity as well. So like maybe that time it might have been according to like info order of that basically definitely since like even though info would be well aware that like John Ho is not his like uh actual brother still like I'm definitely info would be definitely later down having that brotherly feeling that brotherly bond strongly towards like John Ho. So like I'm you know back then in order like save John Ho might certainly be the reason for like exactly like jump of in her well like the back back then on top of like ship on top of like the cliff while Inho had used his weapon on like jump ensure Inho ensuring to like use it in such a way to like they need to now take Janko's life as well would be also and that after doing that like Info might have also done this as well as also like a possibility that I'm looking Info straight away calling like that boatman and basically telling him exactly like the location where like of the island where like Janko is and basically possibly quickly having shown up there and basically quickly having saved Janko possibly being what might have happened way back then. It's also like a possibility that I'm looking for. So like I'm looking for precisely because of all this reason I'm looking like maybe of like the possibility of like the boatman that absolute good friends of like Johnson that boatman that was being secretly allied to like info. It's definitely another thing. So like precisely because of this reason according to my this theory like I'm also predicting like since like this boatman right now knows like the captain of like the team two as well like captain co like the captain of like the team two that's like currently right now trying to like find like the game island in like 4 days like I'm considering like maybe of like the possibility of like the boatman friend of like Janko like basically uh the boatman who might be like pretending to be like the friend of like Janko possibly having like also pulled out another villainous strategy to like stealthily trick once again trick Janko by basically even deciding like who it should be, whom like the captain should be for like the team two. That will be something for like the game island for like the whole day. It's also like a possibility that Amazon. So like that way maybe like I'm looking like the boatman possibly having found like this like captain co who would be like most likely as well secretly allied to like the Squid Game and info and all that. It's also like a possibility that I'm looking for. So that way for those bring the positive since like the boardman front of Jumbo knows so much that like about like Captain Pro that feels like a amazing native and all that like basically those bring like that as well being part of like the boardman's strategy to like once again trick Jumbo and all of them time as well into like basically ensuring that like into like the boardman and captain so that they like trying to like ensure that basically to like to ride the boat and go up to like those exact specific areas around that in like the sea while ensuring that like they don't go anywhere near like the actual Squid Game Island, which like about the location to which like location of the actual Squid Game Island or like the kind of Squid Game taking place like would be secretly known to like both like the boatman from the Django as well as like captain to it's also like a possibility that it's like possibly a secret deal, a secret like deal being present between like the boatman from the Django as well as captain who were like then both like secretly planning on like taking like the entire the team of like Django as well as like Mr. Choi and all of them to locations like that like uh, that won't be like close to like the actual Squid Game Island. It's also like a possibility that Amazon so like Amazon maybe like so like if the theory ends up being true then I'm just for like definitely for like the scenario that Amazon is for like it definitely being jump for himself that will be like eventually finding out like finding out like the trait of within like the boatman front of like Janko boatman whom like Janko believes is and like literally Janko himself like this is like police skills like I'm like Janko probably noticing and so the bring like maybe like that boatman front of Janko like basically slipping up at some point during like their conversation and interaction right now and there will be like searching for like studio mind and like and like at some point like them slipping up in like their conversation and I mean like the boatman slipping up into like conversation and like jump over with like sharp police skills like more to catching that and basically that will like jump over shockingly realizing that like the boatman was in that time was like freaking was like a traitor and was freaking jump over and that time like literally jump having that shocking realization and like yet like I'm the jump definitely would be still even though that a realization would get really shocking and disappointing so that jump still I'm the jump deep down will be still feeling that like bond with that like boatman that I was bring like Jumbo even while I'm bring at that point for like Jumbo threatening like the boatman and to and threatening him to like take all of them through like the studio mine and like and still Jumbo definitely deciding not to like take the life of like the boatman. This is like the in the scenario that I'm doing. Maybe I'm bring like that way like eventually Jumbo ending up like once like Jumbo and also will be making it to the Squid Island and that led right now those friend definitely jump off not ending up time not even in like season 2 of the two games as well like the scenario that I'm so like by the time that hope we are returning back after like saving like the Squid Game candidates who like would be most likely and those like the fourth Squid Game as well and definitely taking place and it would be most likely while the Squid Game would be taking place in that like like possibly or like as it would be time for like the fifth game maybe at that point would be even like Sanjon's like forming like an entire team army with like the Studian candidates and like launching the rebellion against like the Studians like that happening while like the fifth game would be about to take place like about that and in that way like about infiltrated by like Janko and their army as well like literally happening while like during like the time of like the fifth game while like the rebellion of like Sanjon and like speaking and it's all of that would be happening like scenario that I'm doing that way like I'm doing after all this would be over and after like Janho will be like returning back to like the mainland to like the city after all this like after temporarily stopping like the civilians of like 2024 after like stopping like the civilians so 2024 yet like I'm doing the civilians still happening in like 2025 as well as like scenario that I'm doing. Yet like I'm doing after stopping like civilians of 2024 and once like Janho would be like returning back to like the city. Like at that point, I'm wondering maybe also like Jumbo arresting like the boatman and maybe like sending him to like some sort for like a boatman that and the city and maybe put in pressure. But definitely I'm looking like regardless of the like even if like I can't remember if I'm like the boatman usually ends up if the government eventually ends up being like a traitor, still I'm considering like Jung-baeVote definitely won't be definitely that taking the light of like Botman is like the definite in the scenario that I'm going to and also definitely on the impression right now as for like that third member of like Thanos team like in like the beginning having asked like that innocent poor guy to like join up like I'm like that he would be right now totally lying about like it being like a matter of trust that basically he felt like he's in like trust him but like I'm that won't be the actual reason for like us going to like join it's definitely one friends like that. Actual reason would be most likely due to like I'm might be due to like him reminding her of her little brother, the name of the family. Like so, that girl, member of like Thanos team, that I'm like in her real life, that she might have had like her younger brother, and like he might have totally died at some point in like the past. Is definitely one of the reimbursement. So like I'm like definitely this like for another guy like I'm still in today, like I'm this space might have totally reminded her to pay attention to like Manderson as well. Might have only reminded her of her like late young brother. Definitely on the station. That might be like the sole reason for like her ask straight away after in like the beginning to like join her. It's definitely my personal theory and question right now. Okay, so like definitely on the preemption right now as for like Neo right now wearing her civilian mask with that absolute lack of fear and with that absolute confidence. Like I'm remembering like even after like the attack of by those recent attack of like those two civilian maskers, I'm remembering like to especially and definitely due to like definitely Neo having Neo basically as like the third game is like about to begin like and Neo is like getting ready like Neo would be totally prepared to like once again totally defy like the officers and once again eliminate any Squid Game candidates that like the Squid Game worker would be trying to leave alive and basically would be trying to take advantage of that and was trying like to ensure that like to once again defy like the officer again and basically to eliminate uh, the failed Squid Game candidates like would be that fix my that like I'm like New York with you right now getting ready for like as like a Squid Game worker for like the game is definitely my good remedy. So like Neon might have definitely like already might have totally after that attack by those the game was like Neon might have already totally thought out and prepared like her perfect strategy to like basically as for like what exactly to do after like her next defiance, which is definitely Neon will absolutely well and fully aware since it was the defiant warning that definitely the consequence would be like that of elimination. Neon's elimination like reflect the very next defiance of Neon would be that one thing Neon would be absolutely sure of right now. So like Neon might have already like prepared and strategized out and thought out like the perfect escape strategy and those different like Neon would be totally uh, and this would be the precise reason for like Neon right now totally feeling that absolute lack of fear and basically with that absolute and on top of that like with that absolute confidence as well like Neon like basically right now wearing a good game mask as she's getting ready as she gets ready for like the game is definitely one preemption. So like specifically my preemption that like Neo's like escape route would be definitely through that ceiling on top of like the so through that air ventilation maze like that of like the scenario that is sitting on the and also my concern impression that like it wouldn't be just that alone that basically New would be right now would be fed up like that attacked by those two Squid Game workers only or might have been that last throw that like New York on top of like New York might have been totally disliking and it might have been extremely disturbing for like New York to go through like the job of like as like a Sufyan worker with the entire time and like you all might have been totally getting more and more fed up with like each and every year. So definitely going to pre so as like a switch working as like a Sufyan worker and everything it's like it's only it might have been definitely only due to like New York desperately want having that hope of like basically uh being able to like find and save her get back her daughter that Neil might have been this entire time might have been like working as like a game World Cup with that absolute zero interest and absolute dislike towards like this games in that time definitely was the reason. And like this reason attacked by those two game workers might have been that absolute last straw for Neil that like Neil might be right now feeling as if like she has of like Neil was here right now of that feeling of like the mindset as well like she has that at this point she has like absolutely nothing to lose and Neil might have finally at this point, maybe at this point right now, would be even feeling as if like she has even given up like the hope of even being able to like find her daughter. So like I'm thinking right now, like the only thing in like Neo's mind would be to like totally destroy like the citrus to game is like the scenario that I'm going. This would be like the only things in Neo's mind. And this would be that absolute cold feeling within like Neo of that absolute lack of fear, absolute lack of fear and that absolute confidence. Definitely with brain. So like Neo would be right now, what Neo would be right now, might have by now might have fixed in her mind would be to like once again defy like the officers in like the third skill game and then to like escape through like the restroom to like the air ventilation area in the ceiling and escape into that like complex network in like of like the air ventilation in like the ceiling and then Neos as well like the for instance like Neo I think that was like an exposure or something like that. Neos would be totally also having that absolute confidence that like Neos because it would be confidence on top of like the absolute feeling as if like New York has absolutely nothing to lose. So like confidence combined with that absolute lack of fearlessness would be right now makes New York feel as if like basically she's going to even if she ends up dying, like she's going to like do as much damage to like the civilians and will be taking out as much of like the civilian workers as like she can, or like she might even like or like and if she's lucky, she might be able to like with acceptance that she might be uh, able to like take out like everyone, all the civilian workers and that even like the officers and that way put an end to like the to the permanent end to like civilian like the scope would be what like Neo right now would be wearing his her like civilian mask as like Neo is right now about to preparing and like about to use for like the game is definitely meant for the ambition. So this common goal that like trying to exactly have as well to like the story like the and put an into like experience. The exact goal would be what like more as well right now would have come down to came down to is definitely not the brain. So like just like Sanjon right now being clueless as to like how to put an end to like the experience. So like Sanjon's strategy or strategies of our like current like Sanjon right now being clueless as to like basically how to put an end to like experience. Like I'm sort of like it would be through Neo that like I'm thinking like Sanjon would be having like a new opening like a new ray of like hope as if to like basically of like him there like Sanjon only seeing like at least like kind of like a remote extent of like a possibility of like being able to continue with this goal to like possibly being able to like for it down and put an into like experience like the scenario that I'm really bringing in the okay, so like the flavor question right now with like basically for young me thinking that basically as long as they're together, like young me will be able to like win like the third school game along with like Cho-Jun as well as 30 members and have like that dinner like I'm looking like that there itself like I'm looking like young me in like the third school game once it will be itself I'm still thinking about the predictions that like young me would be getting that affluent like faring kind of like shocking situation where like I'm still thinking about the prediction that like the third school game definitely would be the two game of that of like Mingle and like how it would be working like I'm putting definitely it would be like regardless of how it will be working I'm definitely putting it to be like a individual based game so like young is words of like basically as long as we are together like as long as we are together in the games like and that definitely not being possible because like I'm looking like the first game I'm definitely putting it to be like a game where like you should have to like uh, have to like play for themselves. Like I won't be able to like work together as a team. Like very good scenario that I'm sitting on the brain, and that itself definitely resulting in like young me getting eliminated in like the third studio is like definitely a scenario that's sitting on the brain. Okay, so like the new redemption right now and for like in like the game of Mingle like under the point like before like the players will be like getting eliminated more and more like under the next initially under the point like the numbers that will be getting called out would be like huge numbers like under the point like numbers maybe along the spike of like 20 or like 30. So like the scenario that I'm looking for. So like that way like under the point like everyone like totally rushing into like get into like the groups together and I'm looking like the ones that will be initially entering into like the room, like with the beginning that candidates that will be like initially rushing into like the interior of like the room would be on like the farther end of like the room, right? Like I'm looking like all the other others that would be like rushing after them to enter into that room uh would be closer and closer to like the door of like the room. So like at that point, like I'm looking like them all like for like entering like the room, like considering them or counting each other, and definitely considering like the numbers won't be like precise numbers because like I'm definitely because like according to my business, I'm definitely bring like the numbers to not be like 3 or 4, like but small numbers in like the beginning. I'm definitely bring like numbers to be like 3 numbers as in like 20 or 30. So like definitely able to bring that way. Once like they will be entering like the student candidates will be entering lecture room and like the 30 seconds would be like almost about to run out. Like I'm doing like at that point like I'm doing like like they will be like quickly counting each other each of like the three candidates that will be presented like the room, and I'm doing like definitely able to like in each turn like definitely they're being like each like initial turns like I'm doing there to be like 3 for like 4 student candidates that will be in excess. So like in like most of like the room in which like the student candidates will be at that point. So like as the time would be running out, like I'm just like even though I'm just like the first student candidate who would be like standing close to like the door would be like stopping begging like I'm just still I'm just like the remaining student candidates like as like the time if they're about to run out like them getting the fight and then pushing them away out of like the door and quickly closing the door, and that way like I'm just like at that point, like those queues to gain candidates will be pushed out of the door like then quickly as like the time would be about to run out, like then quickly trying to like go up to like the other doors and trying to like enter into like the rooms of like the other door. Yet like I'm looking like from like the other doors as well, like I'm looking them only pushing being pushed out, and basically that way like them getting isolated that way, like and them not being able to like enter into any of like the rooms in such a manner like in the scenario that I'm looking. And then like the 30 seconds like being over and like at that point, like them getting eliminated in like such a painful manner, like like it's definitely not very interesting. So like that unwanted kind of like a feeling by like all these speaking candidates would be pushing them out of sector of and that coupled with like basically the time running out and like the realization that like they will be getting eliminated at that point. Like I'm looking that way like a painful kind of like a death like a scenario that I'm looking. So like I'm looking like like if you give candidates like this, it will be like initially entering into like the room, like I'm putting that even through extreme manners, like I'm putting them attacking and injuring like the remaining few student candidates who will be trying to like get into that same room to like try to like save their life, but like due to like the numbers being more than like the number that will be called out and due to like the time as like the time would be about 30 seconds to be able to run out, like I'm putting them being like in an extreme manner, like then being attacked by like those 15 candidates who will be already in like the room. And that way, like them being pushed out as well as like the scenario that I'm looking. And that way, like I was like poor young me, like the that girl, that friend of that children, like I was like her falling a victim to like such a scenario where like I'm looking like her as well as like the uh Janti as well, definitely as well as like the old woman and whole mother student candidate like some these student candidates and definitely would be in an extreme manner will be getting attacked and basically will be pushed out of like the game rooms, and that way like will be getting eliminated in and them getting eventually will be getting eliminated in like a painful manner like in the scenario that I'm looking on the fight and member. Okay, so like the minimum dreams right now and for like the more likely possibility that I'm just looking as for like how big of like a number like I'm looking like in like the game of Mingles will be getting for even from like a very first number. Up to the point it will be more than 100, even greater than 100. Especially since like I'm looking like right now, just the intent behind like the game of Mingles will be like quickly and sharply cut down, like greatly cut down like the like all the great number of like the majority of like the players, all the weak players from like the total two game candidates. So that like since like it's like the third place in third game and like somebody like maybe in like the fourth game or like maybe from like the fifth game it would be when like the VIPs will be showing up in like the scenario that I'm so like before them showing up like I'm like only the interesting players alone should be interesting and strong players alone should remain would be of like that much of like a great priority for like in whole definitely remembering the definitely you like quickly and greatly like eliminate like the majority of like the current CPS candidate will be considered at least by info. Which is the reason for like the game of Mingle is definitely being like the way it is definitely very much like I'm just like we right now with like really with like Sangyong's team as well as like Cho-jun's team as well, like expecting like numbers along the range of like I think like kind of like 10 or like 5 around that area. Like I'm just like once like the game of Mingle will be beginning and once like the very first number will be called like them all like I'm thinking they right now they most of the probability like them all getting that biggest stock but like I'm thinking like the number that would be called I'm looking like right now looking like it would be even more than 100. It's definitely not looking like so like the very first number that will be getting called I'm looking like which is even greater than 100. It's also like a usually high possible scenario that I'm looking for. That way like this is happening. And I'm looking for them having them not really rushing into like the rooms in great number, but like I'm looking like them also after like rushing into like the rooms like them also having the task to like basically to count all of them before like the 30 seconds is like over and to like ensure that like 100 straight away like I'm looking like even with like the number being 100 like I'm looking like definitely like I'm looking like one of like the teams like maybe not being able to uh not being able to like basically precisely have like the number, get the number right within like the 30 seconds like number, like maybe them getting like something wrong. And like that way maybe like a four set of like a of like around 100 like experienced candidates who would have rushed to one of like the rooms that straight away getting eliminated is like also like about that and so while like the other few set of like that 100 plus student candidates who would have entered like another room, like basically them solely pushing the excess student candidates before like 30 seconds run out, and basically that way like that uh, second team of like 100 100 and exact number of like how much it will be the number that will be first called like their team alone like surviving like the first round of like the Mingle games like the scenario that I'm doing. So like I'm doing like the very first round of like the new games like itself like I'm doing like a great number of like Indian candidates like straight away instantly getting eliminated as like the scenarios that I'm doing and my good play I'm right now. So like basically what the current champ the current right now with like I think like to 55 players in total like I'm looking like definitely sitting down with the impression that like the very first number that it would be called out itself would be like greater than 100 like the scenario that I'm doing and like I'm putting the room itself like even though there are a great number of rooms like I'm saying the rooms itself won't be that big enough to properly contain like around like 100 like civilian candidates so also like about 20 that I'm looking it's like the scenario that I'm doing that way like I'm doing like chunky like I'm looking like definitions like chunky is quite like I'm putting that way like all the civilian candidates getting squeezing themselves into both rooms it's like the scenario that I'm looking at chunky seriously like for chunky seriously like shouting out in pain as like along with everyone like she to as well will be getting squeezed like the scenario that I'm going to protect and my consider impression that way like I'm going to like maybe Janhi in the case of Janhi I'm going to like maybe Janhi not getting eliminated by Squid Game workers but like I'm going to like maybe Janhi ending up trying in like the very first round itself like I'm going to like Janhi will be like entering into like one of like the rooms as like the first number would be called out, which I'm stated the duration will be like a number around 100 or like even just barely greater than 100 from like the 55. So like Abdul doing Janvi at that point like managing like a rushing and enter into like one of like the rooms in which like if you want to be rushing and entering into but like I'm doing like the Janvi getting uh, like really like the room being small not being big enough to contain all of them and like currently ending up basically ending up dying as like if you want to be like there only like if as there only no room for like to contain all of them like I was saying, currently getting caught in like the middle of all those great number of people who would be like getting squeezed in that in within that room and that resulting in like the pregnant junkie ending up that way ending up dying from within that room itself. Like while being surrounded by all of like those Indian candidates who are getting squeezed like within that room. This like individual possible scenarios that I'm looking for right now and method media.